Welcome, Bryson King, to the Society of the Sacred Pixel. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'll just share my screen really quick. Um, but I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming and being here. Okay.
That's Yep.
Perfect. All right. All right. Well, now that we got that out of the way, we'll actually get started. But yeah, I just want to say to start off, thank you everybody for coming, and thanks to Steve for inviting me to share a little bit. Um, I'll just give a quick overview of my design history, as you may call it. But I really stumbled into graphic design when I was in high school. One of my teachers invited me to participate in a statewide competition for T-shirt design, which is kind of a funny way to get started into it. But I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I was determined to make money from it some way or somehow. But after high school, I decided to go to the state school here in Utah, where I'm from. And after a first attempt, I got rejected. They have a small program of only 20 students every year. And so I just missed the mark my first year. And then I came back and I got accepted. I got into a couple of part-time jobs to just apply my learning in real time, which was helpful. And then towards the end of my education, my employers decided that they did not want to hire me full time. And I decided that was okay. And I was going to bet on myself and find something. And um, luckily enough for me, I found an agency in the town that I was living in. And they decided to hire me on. And that's where I've been since. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm just gonna share this little sizzle reel that kind of quickly goes over some of the work that I've done for past clients, past jobs till now. So before I get into the bulk of what I want to talk about, I just want to explain a little bit more about what I do day to day that I think really helps me um, do what I like to do and hopefully do some cool stuff and make some money at the same time. But currently, I work with the agency called Steel Design Co. And I work 40 hours for them. So I work full time for them, doing anything they need that ranges from brand identity um, to motion to videography to pretty much anything in between. So when you see those posts that are like, well, I'd like to do logo design and that's it. That's not me. I do a little bit of everything because I like to not do the same thing every single day. So that's what's helped me to avoid burnout and to keep doing fun things. So, and then after that, I do stuff on my own with my own brand, whether that's, freelance clients or outreach or, working on my personal brand or trying to make new connections and share my opinions with people who might be interested in design or who might not be interested in design, because that's really what I like to talk about anyways. So, but yeah, so that being said, I just want to share slowly a couple of the projects I've worked on in the last year or so. But yeah, this is a lemonade brand. And then this is a modified golf cart brand that's based here in Utah. And then a podcast for creative people I was able to work on. And then this was a sports news site for one of the local universities who also dabbles in podcasting. and then a merchandise company for the same university, which is kind of funny. And then these are just a couple of logos who I love so much I wanted to share, but didn't have all the brand stuff at my fingertips. But yeah, hopefully what I say in the next little bit can help all of you in some way. But if not, I'm pretty sure there's a questions and answers segment afterwards, and you're more than welcome to ask whatever. So let's get into it then. The first thing I want to talk about is stepping stone projects. So everybody kind of has a different term for what these projects are. And to me, I call them stepping stone projects because literally I feel like I've jumped stone to stone in trying to progress and get better. But to me, these projects are like early projects that maybe aren't as lucrative as other projects, but where it lacks in, the financial side, it helps in the creative aspect. In these projects, I didn't make really any money. Probably out of all of them, I made $35 in a promise for a car detail. But I was able to act more as a creative director. I was able to put more creative influence into these projects and kind of build them so that it was a real person I was working for, but I had a lot more say, because I truly believe that the work that gets noticed sometimes won't be the ones you get paid well for, especially in the beginning, because as I started, there was nobody who really cared to know what Bryson King was doing. But if I showed them the problems I could solve or the creative solutions that I brought to a problem, that's what they wanted to see, because a lot of these ones, the projects that I just showed you, were ones that led to projects shown in my sizzle reel or the ones that I presented right at the beginning. Because they saw that I could do those things, they wanted to work with me. The second thing that I really want to get into is design and business, and how they're a lot closer than maybe the education system or people online might want to tell you, because I feel like when I was in school I didn't learn a lot about this relationship and how much I depended on them and how much they depend on me, because when I was in college I felt like I said, I was the creative director. I was deciding what was the end all be all for these brands, because it only had to go through me. But when I entered the real world, the final say went to the client. Now, there was a lot of different directions that I wanted maybe these specific ones to go in, but regardless or not, they made the decision that they wanted to go a different way, or they wanted to go this way. And I can influence them or suggest as much as I want, but their problem is brought to me by them, and and so it's up to me to help them get what they need. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's design sometimes. But at the end of it, it's okay, because we are here to help solve problems. We're here to help business owners solve problems. We're here to help other creatives solve problems, because business needs design. Designers thrive under constraints, and brands need true connection. I think especially in the future, in the next probably 5 years, we're going to see that brands are going to need true connection. They're going to need human connection. And so this example underneath is a project I worked on early last year, where the client brought me his logo and was like, I want it to look like this. And it was the middle. And I was like, this still doesn't really solve the problem that you're wanting. Let's try some other things. And so we ended up on the end logo, and now it's not so different from the first one, but solving the problem that he needed was imminent and brought us to the last part. So they don't hire us to be their hands. They hire us to help them with thinking most of the time. I would say that there's a few exceptions, but there's always exceptions to the rule. And going back to the true connection thing, I know there's a lot of people using AI, and there's a lot of different opinions on that, and I don't want to get too much into that. But what I do want to get into is that creative thinking is still in demand and will still be in demand. I think creative thinking isn't going to go anywhere. It's always going to have a spot. So that being said, most clients who reach out understand that they need creative thinking, and while they might have different skills, creative thinking might not be one of them, and so they know they need help when they come to me, even if they don't admit it. And so it's up to me and up to us as designers to help them with that or be the help that they need. And so that real relationship is something that I think is important to understand, because there's always conversations of like, well, the client doesn't get it, or they just don't understand my style, or I think sometimes too it can get confusing with well, my niche is in technology branding and they are something else, and while maybe they should have done research or something, but it's not that you need to stay stuck. You can evolve, I guess is what I want to say. um and in the end, clients trust you with their brand. They trust you specifically. They trust your skills. They trust your process. If they didn't trust you, they wouldn't have asked. um so the final thing that I really want to go over in this is trusting the process. And the idea that, sometimes freelancing too fast can be harmful to those just getting into this, then it can be helpful. Because truly, if you know me, I have like 4 friends. And, you know, if I've already done work for 2 of them, where am I going to get more work? Right? If I've done 2, and they were the 2 that I didn't make any money from, so that I got $0, right? So, where am I going to get that if I'm going to go hop it right into freelance? Where am I going to get those people? Right? So if I don't know anybody, where will the work come from? If nobody knows me, where is that work going to come from? And so just to share a little bit of an experience, when I was working for a company called Danique, they do notebooks and stationery design. They paid for a trip for us to go to Portland and to just learn a lot about different design, different art styles, different this, that, and the other. And one of the parts we actually got to meet the crew from Lincoln Design Co. If you haven't seen some of their stuff, it's really rad. And then Dan, who's the main guy, he shared something with me, was like, just as an overview, is freelance is good, get out there, but learn skills on other people's dimes. Learn skills while you can, and then you can apply it to your own stuff later in life. Meet people, and then they'll come back. Do right by people, and then they'll come back. And so, like I said, no need to rush into pressure. Work on someone's dime and develop skills when possible. And truly, I believe that if you trust the process and you do good work and you continue to be a learner, like, you will succeed. Don't get stuck in the mundane. Be creative, expand your tool belt, share your work, and grow your network. And I think those last 2 things we didn't touch a lot on, but sharing your work is key. If you don't share your work, even though sometimes it can be like really, it can feel cringy, or it can feel like, lame or self-absorbed, share your work, because if no one sees it, then no one can know that you do it, right? And then grow your network, because the more people who you connect with, the more odds that you will get some work from them eventually. And then I just want to share one of my favorite quotes that goes, "To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift." Really, just do your best, and I think things will come back. What you send out will come back, even though sometimes it feels really hard and it feels like you might not be going anywhere, or what you're doing might not be amounting to much. Just keep going, keep trying, keep putting in your best work, and then eventually something will switch, something will click, and I promise that. So, but yeah, that's what I have as when it comes to discussion. This has been awesome. I'm still Bryson, but thank you.
So Bryson, let's talk a little bit more about like the relationship with the agency if you're able to. Like how did that come about? How did you contact them? How did they decide to work with you on an ongoing basis, obviously?
Yeah, so I, I actually just found out that it was a lot longer of a story than I initially had thought. Um, when I was getting into school, I decided to work for a commercial rap company, and couldn't decide if they wanted me to be a designer or if they wanted me to do the rapping. And then that relationship didn't end up too hot. And so I ended up moving to this stationery company where I worked a lot on process, and I connected with a bunch of people on LinkedIn. I'm not a business person, but I did connect on LinkedIn. And the agency owner, messaged me on LinkedIn and asked if we could go to lunch, and that he was interested in working with me, and he wanted me to come on his team. And it was super cool. He was like, I saw you because you were posting all of this, cool stuff you were doing in school and other things. And he was like, I thought you would be an interesting guy, and I wanted to chat, and it ended up working out. But I'd learned that, because I wasn't a jerk to my first boss at the commercial rap company, that he recommended me to this agency owner. And so, I may not have liked the first place because I had no idea what they wanted from me, but I tried to be as nice as I could, and do what I could to help regardless, even though, because I was still in that position, and it ended up paying off. So,
That worked out well.
So how many roles have you had like throughout your career?
um, So I've only worked at three different places. So I worked at the commercial rap place for like 3 months, and then I worked for a year. I worked for a year as a just like an intern at this stationery place called Danique. And that was during my senior year. And then I graduated in May, and then I worked full time for this agency since then.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Blake has a question. Thank you, Adam. Why don't you just jump in, Blake? I see.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was just typing out another one too, so I didn't forget it. But no, I was just curious about like other than like your personal connections and just networking through people and other past clients. What have been your most successful ways in finding new clients in like a cold way, whether it be like email outreach, social media, or going business to business? Anything about that? I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, I have done all of those actually. Cold emails has been the least successful. But social media has been the most successful. So it's just whether it's just posting my own stuff onto social media and then commenting on everybody else's posts, like if they post something that I'm interested in, whether it's sports or whether it's, something locally, or, even something design related, I'll share, I'll give my opinion or whatever. And some people will reach out to me on that because they're interested in the same things, or they were reaching out for a question, and that's helpful to build like community and like genuine conversation, because I think sometimes on social media it can feel so cold and so isolated, so that if you try just to like be a real person, people respond to that, and that's been good for me. And so then to hit on the last one, going business to business, I've tried that where it's just like introducing myself and handing out business cards, and it's been all right. I think the hardest part is actually connecting with the people who make decisions at those places. So, like I've gone in places to like hand out business cards and chat, and I'm meeting like the owner's nephew, and it's like, okay, that doesn't really help, but hey, great to meet you anyways. So I think there is success there, but it's making sure that you do talk to the right person when you go business to business. I would still suggest, though, social media, but I wouldn't say just do one of them. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, and kind of as a follow-up to that, I was kind of curious on like what do you find on average most of your freelance clients like either like come to you for or like end up needing the most? Like I'd say like at least personally, I either have clients who are like, maybe I just need a logo and like a graphic here and there, or I usually have people where it's like, oh, like we need like this ongoing project and like this whole campaign. What has been your experience? What do you tend to find?
Yeah, so I've had a couple of people who are like, no, we just need a logo, like that's it. And I will do my best to be like, hey, logos are cool and they're definitely help and they're really just the first thing that people see. Like, and most of the time I'll have something prepared, whether it's like, here's Nike or here's Coca-Cola or here's whatever. And I'll be like, this is their logo, but that's not their brand. This is their brand. And I'll show different pictures and be like, now you know why, Nike is cool. Okay. Yeah. Because it's all of this. And so I'll try and use that kind of moment to teach or like help them to understand why they would need more. And then even if at the end of that they're like, no, we just need a logo, then I'm like, okay, well, all right, that's fine. Like we'll get you what you need, but understand that I think you do need more still. And if you do end up deciding that you need more, okay, you can come back and we can talk more. But what I find myself mostly working on are I think similar things where it's people just coming in with like, hey, my brand has a logo and I need a pattern. That's it. And it's like, okay, can I help you with other things? Like, what else could you need help with? And so a lot of my clients have been small to start with, and it's just been taking time to talk to them and understand the problem and like at a deeper level, because I think sometimes they just don't understand that they do need something more instead of just what they can see that they need. Because sometimes what they see is not exactly what the problem is. It's just like a short-term solution.
Yeah, it's just what's bothering them at that particular moment.
Yeah.
And then also too, I know that a lot of other people are probably curious about this. It's a regular topic that comes up is how do you, and then also how do your clients feel about project versus hourly based payments for your projects, and kind of what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I can, I try and push towards project-based payments. I understand that sometimes different businesses have a harder time operating under that. And so I try and explain why I do what I do with project-based payments and the benefits that could come from that. Because I'm not one who is like, well, I will charge you $100 an hour and then I'm going to take 300 hours to get this done for you. Like, ha 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 ha, like I'm still going to try and be like a decent human being and just work at a decent pace. But at the same time, it's like, I want to get this done fast for you and I want to get this done good. And this is why I have a project-based payment, because it's going to probably come out to be about the same. It's just depending on how like we can get this rolling, So my suggestion would be project-based payments, but understanding that not every business is the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question. So yeah, I'm going through your website right now, and I see the page with all the logos, and I was curious to know like what your logo process is like, more specifically with the marks, more than like the text, like the word mark logos. So yeah, what is that like from like point A to point Z?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of just sketching. I mean, I carry a notebook with me all the time, so like it doesn't matter if I'm like, sitting at my desk or if I'm, sitting at a park or something, like I'm always sketching. And so what I like to do to start is like, I'll do my research, whether it's, Pinterest, or whether it's Design Inspiration, or whether it's another website, or whether it's books or other things, or maybe it's not even in the design area at all. Like I'm just doing research on, animals or something, like something different that might spark inspiration. And then I get all of that kind of put together in like a little folder. And
What about other people's logos?
like taking
Like
other people's logos as inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that there's any problem being inspired by other people. I think you can't trademark like a curve or something. I think obviously if your solution is like nailed down to something super similar to someone else, it probably isn't great. But I think that there is sometimes happy coincidences of things. But if you taking inspiration from other designers, I think is okay. I think um, I'm trying to remember there was something that a professor told me once. It's like stealing with both hands. It's like maybe don't take everything, but like you could take a little here and take a little there, and original thought is another conversation of like, is there original thought? But it's like, you know, how do I pull things together, or how do I make this work for this person? Or so I don't think that there's any issue with that kind of stuff, but taking all of that and then putting it all out, and if you have enough, you can kind of look like what you all have, and then sketch. And then once you sketch that kind of stuff, I think it becomes pretty unique to you, as long as it's obviously not copy paste. And then, I think that would probably entail most of my process. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So basically, research, sketch, and then you bring it on to like Illustrator to make it like the actual.
Yeah, and
logo.
sometimes my sketches don't work in Illustrator, and I get like super bummed because I'm like, oh man, that was such a cool idea. But sometimes I think that's why you start with so much. I start with so much research, and then it boils down to a lot of sketches, and it boils down to a few vectors, and then finally the ones I want to present. So
What do you mean by it doesn't work when you transfer it over to like it doesn't translate well?
yeah, like it looked so much cooler in my head, and then on
Oh,
my notebook it looked pretty cool, and then once it got to vector, I was like, this is actually kind of lame. So
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, happens.
yeah.
Yeah, I've heard from someone on Reddit before that you should like as someone that designs logos, like you should always do pen and paper. I don't know if that's like a strict rule that you recommend. Do you think would you like recommend that for logo designers, people that really want to, take
Yeah,
their logos to the next level?
I would suggest, I mean, in like one of my classes, and my professor suggested 50 sketches. He's like, if you can't get 50, then maybe you should do more research. And it's a lot. I think 50 is a lot, but just kind of doing that for several projects has helped with like design think, like, okay, what kind of solutions would work? Okay, how do I combine these ideas? Or how does this look in a different layout or different setup? Or so I think putting all of that pen to paper helps you to like actualize your thinking process. And so whether or not you give 50 sketches, or if you're just sketching out 10 or 15, like, I think it can only benefit.
Yeah. How do you feel about pen and paper versus like digital stuff, like on an iPad, sketching on an
I
iPad?
use pen and paper. I mean, I have my iPad, and I do sketch sometimes on my iPad. But I think it's that at that point, it's just a personal preference. I think
Mhm.
sketching, whether it's digitally or actually, is up to you. I think I'm not as big on the digital, and that's just a personal preference. I think it could work for someone else.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Bryson. Blake has pasted in a link to an article about Tom Brown versus Adidas, talking about three stripes versus four stripes. I was going to say, like logos tend to be minimal, so the challenge is you're trying to strip out extraneous elements usually, and therefore, if there's any inspiration or if there's something you never saw that just happens to be close, it's a challenging situation when two final logos look similar. But it's inevitable at some point because you're getting down to the core. So I did not read what you posted, Blake, but we could check it out later. Myra has a question.
My question was basically like you talked about like not like rushing into freelance, but like what would you like recommend someone do if they want to like have their own freelance business but don't have experience like in the field yet, like haven't had a job as a graphic designer at a company or anything like that?
I would say don't solely rely on freelance at the beginning. I'd say get out there and freelance. But I would say don't hope for that to be like the end all be all to begin with. I think it's beneficial to meet other people and to rely on their businesses and learn from them, almost like mentors. And then do your own freelance when it comes time. Because I want to get to a point where, the only thing I'm doing is my, my agency is what I want to do. And so I think I'm on that path as well. But as for like not having the experience, that's when it goes back to like the stepping stone projects of like finding people to work with and not necessarily working for free, but maybe it happens to be free, or maybe it happens to be, okay, I can do this for you, but like I'm gonna help you with creative how I feel like it should like go, because I want to try some things, and most of the time it'll be good. But yeah, stepping stone projects, even if it's like you're driving downtown and you're like, wow, that coffee business is a little lame, and I'm gonna do this on my own. I'm gonna try something on my own. And you just give yourself constraints and do projects. And I think whether or not it's a true freelance project, it will help you gain that experience that you can show to a potential business owner, like, hey, I could do this for you, or a potential boss or employer. Hey, I can do this for your brand, full time. Or, people will stumble upon your stuff, or you'll share your stuff and they'll want to work with you. So, does that help? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah, some of those small businesses expand, right? It's not a huge percentage, but once in a while, so one of them grows to be regional or national, and hopefully you are the person that they enjoyed working with, or reach out to them, or the founders or somebody involved winds up starting another company. And Bryson, you're very personable. You seem like you're really good to work with. I'm sure you are. So being the person that they think of at that point has got to be a big advantage. Let's keep the questions going, but I have a question. Based on your education, what surprised you the most about working in the real world? What did your schooling prepare you for well, and what was lacking?
In my education, I think what prepared me was process, and like, you know, um, each step as clearly defined. I think what was different once I got into like full-time agency stuff was how sometimes it can get a little blurry, whether its timeline is a little quicker or a lot longer, or like this part of the process has to be moved, or we gotta probably combine these two processes. It's probably more of the I did not realize how much flexibility I probably would need in a real world agency thing in comparison to like the projects I was doing in school.
Flexibility, like time or something else?
Probably both, like, hey, the steps, but I need you to go quicker, or hey, I think maybe your research and sketch should happen at the same time so that we don't spend so much time on this, because we don't have enough time. We're not making enough money on this project for you to spend 3 months on this, when it was like, oh man, I really want to put some TLC into this project. And it's like, well, you're not getting paid for that, so you better hurry up. And so I think that part for me was I got caught a little off guard, but I think it was a little learning curve, but I think you catch on to it. So
Got it. All right. Thank you, Bryson. Lydia Ann, would you ask your question?
Yes. So you mentioned researching, and since I haven't had a lot to design on my own from scratch, I haven't really been doing that. Would you say that it's a big part of designing?
yeah, I think even if you're not starting a project from scratch, I think it's beneficial. Like a few months ago, we were working on like a construction company, and they were like, we don't want to touch the logo. If anything, we want to just maybe refine it, and we love the color palette, so we don't want to change much of that. We just want to add to the brand. And so a lot of that came with researching who the company was, or what other people may be doing in that field, and how we could differ from them, or what kind of design layout would look good, or what kind of additions to this brand could be beneficial. And so I would say research at any stage of the process is beneficial. For me, I get a lot of it done at the beginning so that I don't have to do large research processes in between different steps, but I can kind of add different parts of the research as needed. So I'd say research is huge. Going into a project blind can be pretty tough.
I have a question. How much of like foundational design stuff you learned like throughout your whole design journey and your development overall as a graphic designer came from school versus like outside of school in the real world, whether that was like maybe, I don't know if you've taken courses outside of school or like on the job or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my education provided a good base of like, this is the fundamentals. Like, this is why we do what we do. And then in the real world, because I knew the fundamentals, I think it was easier for me to utilize them to my benefit, whether it was ignoring some of them or breaking the other or like applying a bunch of them together. Like, so I think education helped teach me them, and then real world helped me to understand when they were necessary and when I could avoid them, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I would say education probably provided a lot of that for me.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Lydian. Let's talk about confidence. A lot of times we hear questions about imposter syndrome. You're going out there, you're fresh out of school at first. How long did it take you before you felt a little confident? And what things helped you to build up your confidence as you're working with real clients?
That's a good question. I think that you're always going to feel slightly like an imposter for a long time. I think I wouldn't say it's completely gone for me, but I would say like, taking a second to realize like, okay, like I have done this before. Like I have studied this. Like I took time to really apply my knowledge and like really try, And so like they reached out to me. Like I at least deserve or to give them the best version of me. And so I don't know if that's a great answer, but it's like taking a second to know that you're where you're at because of what you've been able to do. Like you're the designer that you are because you've done cool things in the past. And so like for me it took a little bit after this job to realize like, okay, like I could do this. Like I can lead this project, or I can get the information from this client and we can make something really cool. But it just takes a second to realize like, you're in the spot you are because, you've worked for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I totally agree. Sometimes we have to go like, "Hey, I've done good work."
Yeah.
And they're contacting me for a reason. We're all this. Most people who go into this field are not egomaniacs. They tend to be, in my experience, on the other end of the spectrum. And sometimes we just need to reinforce within ourselves whatever got us here. To remind ourselves of our own skills and accomplishments.
Yeah, just take a deep breath and realize they called you. They called you, not someone else. So,
Yeah. What's been the hardest part of working with real clients so far?
yeah, it's kind of twofold, I think. I think sometimes it's giving them like your baby, where it's like you just designed this beautiful project for them and then trusting them to apply it. And so sometimes that's really hard. And I've tried to avoid that by like outlining things that they will need to do with what parts of the brand that I've given them. So hopefully that isn't a hard part anymore. But the other hard part can be sometimes is like helping them to understand what they need, that maybe a pattern isn't going to solve all of their problems, or that they have a beautiful brand, but for their new mission or for their growth, it might not be as successful as they want it to be. And that's not coming from me as someone who's critical of your brand. It's coming from me, someone who wants to help you with your brand. And I think sometimes that's a little bit of a disconnect, and that can be so hard because it's like, I promise, if I was going to tear you down, this would be a roast session, but it's not. I'm trying to help. So yeah, I think that's hard, and learning how to make it not that is difficult, and I think I'm still trying to do that, but it's coming along.
Got it. That's great. More questions for Bryson? Looks like we've had a couple people join since the start, so if you want to jump in, this is the time. How about this one? What's your favorite project that you've worked on so far, Bryson?
My favorite project that I've worked on was, I think, the most rewarding one was the AgShip one. I think it's second in my works page on my website. It's the news source for the college. I would say that one was my favorite because the process, they reached out to me because they wanted help with their website. And I'm not a big web guy, but they reached out to me for that. And I was like, how about I do your website? But because I'm doing your website, I've noticed that you're going to need some more brand elements to this. So let's just expand your needs a little bit and let's do the whole thing. And I was able to convince them, and that was like one of the first ones that I feel like I was able to really convince them to do all of everything, you know. And so that to me was really, really satisfying, and you know, and how everything came together, and then how they've used it, and the response to their branding as it was rolled out was really, really rewarding. And so that's been my favorite so far. But it's hard to pick a favorite project like it is to pick a favorite child. So you might have one, but you're not going to say it too much.
This is being recorded. Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's a cool project. I can see the little finessing aspects that you've given to their word mark, which is called out, and I pasted the link into the chat. Kind of on that line, when you said you don't usually do web work, what skills have you had to develop, like technical or otherwise, software or otherwise, while you've been working, and what skills are on the horizon that you think you might need to develop in the future?
Yeah, so like I said, I learned a little bit of web and I learned a little bit of motion in school, but not really much to be like, hey guy, yeah, I could definitely take on your website. But as I've like really been relied on at my job, or proved that I could be relied on, they've pushed me to do more motion, or they've pushed me to do more website. And so that was really cool to like kind of teach myself, or like expand what I've already learned and then turn that into a usable, sellable skill. And so I've also started to try, you know, writing and understanding how the written word plays into design, or and then hopefully on the horizon is a little bit of videography and photography. That's going to be my passion for 2026. I've decided. Starting late though.
Yeah, it's important. So it's good that you get that in there. Yeah, that's a good point about message, or about writing, which I am extending into creating messaging for businesses. That tends not to be our area, but to have an understanding of it is certainly helpful. All right. Anybody else? I have a closer question for Bryson, but we don't have to finish now. If you have something you want to ask him, please jump in. Oh wait, there's Ralph. Ralph, jump on in.
Yeah, just want to know what's your favorite guild identity project, and why was it killed by the player stakeholder?
It was, I showed it in the presentation as a part of those logos, those 8 logos. It was, and I think it's on my logo page if you still are on my website. But it is the Queen logo. So it's for this brand called Red Queen. And I thought it would be really cool to have a queen outline, but her hair makes the shape of an R. And I was like, this is so cool. I've struck design gold. And then they came back and they were like, yeah, it's not techie enough for us. And I was like, oh, dang. But, you know, luckily we had some other, you know, we had like a variety of different options. And so they ended up not, you know, the presentation wasn't a bust because my identity wasn't, my favorite identity wasn't picked. But yeah, that one was a bummer because I was so pumped about it. Yeah.
Scott has a question. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Bryson.
Sure. So, as long as I've been doing this, I think identity, and I don't do a ton of identity, but I still find that it is the toughest thing to manage scope creep on. So I'm curious if you have like a plan or a system when you start an identity project for like, here's what we're going to give you the round 1. We're going to give you 3 options, and here's what we need at the end of round 1. Because I think the easiest snowball, especially with identity design, is just like, we didn't like any of that first set. We just need another 3 logos. Those didn't work. We just need another 3 logos. I'm curious if you've, in your time doing this so far, developed a good system or a good plan for just like, hey, we're getting the mark down. We just like, how do we keep everybody from just continually cycling through? Nope, more ideas, more ideas, more ideas.
Yeah. So I think my answer really comes from, I don't know if you ever heard of this podcast. It's called The Change of Brand. It's hosted by the owners of Matchstick. It's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but specifically there's a project that they work on with the Army. And they talked about how at the beginning of the meeting, they would decide if it was a decision meeting or if it was a presentation meeting. And so I've really tried to apply that in being like, okay, guys, like, I'm really excited to show you all of this, but this is a decision-making meeting. So we got to decide something at the end of this. So just keep that in mind before we go into all of these different things. I'm going to explain why I think these are great, and then we're going to chat. And then at the end of this, we got to make a decision. And that super helped because then I set expectations for them. And then, at the end of the meeting, they set expectations for me for the next meeting, And so I think that has super helped for people to understand what I can do for them and what they can do for me. Instead of it's, we're working on two separate worlds, we're trying to come together and work together. So that's been super helpful. And I would suggest that that episode, if you're curious more, because they have a bunch of other things that they do as well. And that's just one of them that I've tried to apply.
Cool. Thanks.
I'm finding the podcast now. A Change of Brand. I have not heard of this. All right. It looks like that was it, but I have one more question for you, Bryson. What is one thing you wish someone had told you earlier about the work that you're doing?
For me, the biggest thing was to trust the process. I think truly that's something that's important because I'm an anxious person and I like to get things done. I feel like I'm behind sometimes when I'm really not. And I think understanding that, you're going to get there. You're going to do great things. Just keep going and keep learning. Like, I wish someone would have told me that, right when I was rejected from the program the first time. That is like, it's okay. You're going to get there. Like, it sucks right now. I know. But this isn't the end of your story. Like, this is just a chapter. So just keep going. And you're going to get there.
That's great to hear. All right. Thank you, Bryson.